So it's a pretty lofty introduction to follow. So I'm humbled by your words. Thank you for the time to be here. Thank you for the time to address this great crowd about something I'm pretty passionate about. And you know, when I was thinking about my remarks and everything going on here, I chose this title: Irony, Inconsistency, and Authenticity in the Golden Age of Craft. So bear with me for a couple of minutes, and I'll try to set up the premise of kind of what I want to talk about. For those of you who read the agenda, my remarks were billed as a thought-provoking keynote address on honesty, transparency, and the importance of self-reflection in today's crowded craft environment. I joked with our communications person and Chris, it sounds like I'm delivering a commencement speech here. And that's a pretty lofty thing to do in 15 minutes, and I was worried, because I don't want to come across this way, as the old man yelling at the cloud, "You're going to rain, I know you're going to rain on me." And there's the risk of that with what I'm going to say. And likewise, I don't want to come across as this guy preaching to all of you about what I know to be true about the beliefs that I hold. And perhaps most topically and most importantly, I do not want to come across as angry as any of these individuals might have. So if you'll indulge me with that as some context, some level setting up front, I'm going to ask questions. I'm not going to necessarily give you the answers, but I'm going to ask some questions that I really believe we should all be asking. I'm going to offer some thoughts. They are candidly not conclusions. They are work in progress, just like many of our businesses are, and just like the industry that we hold so dear is. I'm going to give you some observations, not just opinions, observations. And I think we all operate in a space now that is so opinion-driven that sometimes we stop and we don't see what's right in front of us, even though it's as clearly visible as the Statue of Liberty when you're downstairs. And I'm going to name names, but I want to be clear, I'm not taking shots, because I think that's one of the very things that's wrong with where we're going. Instead of naming things and having candid discourse and debate about them, we name them to drag them down, to smear them, and to have some smoke and mirrors so that nobody pays attention to what we're doing. So with that, what's the next 15 minutes going to look like? Or the next 12 minutes, to be exact. We're going to talk first about some driving influences for today's market. I'm not going to share a lot of data, but I want to get a premise out there to you that sets up everything else, because I want to talk what the implications of that premise for the beer market. And yes, craft is intentionally in parentheses there, because I wonder whether we're getting to the tipping point or past that tipping point in some markets where we don't just have to worry about craft anymore, but we've got to worry about beer. And lastly, I want to talk about shaping the future. So, what are the forces in today's market? We talk about the millennials, you'll hear about them a lot, but let's just level set for a second. There's 80 million millennials in the United States. 80 million. They represent $600 billion in buying power. And given the environment we operate in, and given the psyche of today's consumer, they, by all accounts, have an unprecedented effect on older generations and on the generations to come, unlike no generation before them. And you can understand that. The advent of social media, tweeting, Facebook, digital space, their opinions ripple in ways unprecedented in our lifetime. So when you ask these important people, what's important to you in a brand? This is what they say. These are the top 5 things that they think are important for a brand. That brand be trustworthy, that it be creative, intelligent, authentic, and confident. So let's use that as a premise to turn the mirror on ourselves and ask some of those questions. Again, not the old angry guy yelling at the cloud, not the preacher, not the angry politicians who are peddling our own beliefs, but let's use that as a premise to really ask some questions. So I have to ask first, in a world where trustworthy matters, how transparent an industry are we? How many of us give the information to the consumers that they so badly want? Be that in terms of what is inside the bottle. One of my pet peeves, be that where we brew the beer. Right? One of the dirty little secrets in our industry, we love to put where our headquarters is located because it's in a cool city. But shouldn't we be proud and transparent about where that beer is actually brewed and produced? Shouldn't we be proud if we have a contract partner of ours that's doing that? And lastly, shouldn't we be transparent about where the money is coming from and where the money is going? You know, it's one of my pet peeves as a publicly traded company. It's clear that we've basically taken our lumps because of being publicly traded or what we have to disclose or who our ownership is. But I love when somebody says to me, "Oh, you're owned by AB." And I laugh. And I say, "No, they own 32% of the company and they're our distribution partner." And they say, "Well, they're influencing what you do." And so know what I usually do? I say, "Hey, who's your favorite craft brewery?" They name a name. I said, "Do you know who owns 32% of them?" And they'll be like, "No, who?" I'm like, "I don't either." Because they don't have to tell you. But nobody seems to have an issue with that. So, question, how transparent are we? Next question. In a world where intelligent, confident, authentic matters, those three things that the Millennials told us, how consistent are we? How consistent are we? Groucho Marx famously said, "I refuse to join any club that would have me for a member." And sometimes I will respectfully submit to all of you, we enter the hypocrisy zone and we do it with both feet. Where are the double standards in our industry? Man, where do I start? You know, we started out in the industry with a very loud voice yelling, "Fizzy yellow beer is for wussies." And now a number of years later, we're all trying to peddle our 5% craft lagers that taste a lot like that fuzzy yellow beer, except they're brewed in a place I'm not going to tell you about. But it's different. I'd submit to you it's a double standard. We talk about money being bad until it's our money, until we're the ones who can sell out. And then we try to victimize and vilify and demonize the people who worked like hell to build a business and then realize some value for it. I'm not saying that these things are not without merit to debate, but I'm submitting to you we spend way too much time, way too much mind space, way too much resource trying to basically support and defend a lot of things that in the end, we should be basically standing up publicly changing because it's going to impact us. We vilify AB because of their ad to try to build Budweiser, yet then we vilify them for investing in craft. Well, which is it? Are they trying to kill craft or are they investing too much money in craft? Double standard. Smoke and mirrors, pay for play, famously celebrated in Boston this last year, where the people everybody was pointing a finger at weren't the ones who ended up getting implicated. Double standard. The BA's famous list of the top U.S. craft breweries, which this year had an unprecedented, I think, 17 footnotes. Really? This is our industry. How consistent are we in a world where confidence and intelligence and trustworthiness matters? So let's go on. In a world where creative matters, one of my favorites. How innovative are we? Creative. These are the innovations of the beer industry. I am not trying to call people out. I am naming names. I am not trying to hold any of these people culpable and saying these are bad. But I want to ask, are these beer innovations? Do these help the beer space? Cider, flavored malt beverages, seltzers, hard alcohol root beers. I mean, my God, they've even got cocktail glasses on the cans. Do we think that's helping the image of beer? Yet when a big company innovates behind a mixtail, or behind a cocktail, or behind a cider, or behind a tea, we're good with it. But when they spend money in craft that might actually help the beer business in the long term, man, do we have a problem with it. This helps companies' bottom lines, no doubt. I suggest to you it doesn't necessarily help the beer business in the long run, because all this does is help drive at our soft underbelly of relevance for that consumer today. And then who says big is bad? I love this one, right? We're the second largest publicly traded craft beer company. We are the largest craft beer company in Oregon. Widmer Haifa is one of the largest craft beers in Oregon. Big is bad, rail on the man. When millennials were asked their 10 favorite brands, over 3,500 millennials researched, this is what they chose. Apple, Nike, Samsung, Sony, Microsoft, Target, Amazon, you can read down the list. Are these small indie companies? No. But I think you're hard-pressed, regardless of what you think of any one of these companies, to say that most of them don't favor well when you grade them against trustworthiness, creativity, intelligence, authenticity, or confidence. So again, just asking the question, are we basically building brands that are like that, or are we railing on the man and on big is bad? So I'd submit to you we get the industry we deserve. And my thought-provoking thing I want to leave you with is, as I wrap up in the next couple of minutes, are we killing the goose that laid the golden egg? Who are we? What is our industry? You know, I was getting coffee this morning, and the guy said, "Is there a conference in town?" You know, I had my badge on. So as though I was tempted to say to him, "No, I just like people to know who I am." I said, "Yeah, I'm at a beer conference." And I thought to myself, I didn't say a craft beer conference. I said a beer conference. What industry are we in? We sell beer. I've said it very loudly before. Our last name is always beer. Be it domestic beer or imported beer or craft beer or indie beer or artisan beer, we are the beer family. And I think we ought to remember that sometimes. Are we building beer in the eyes of today's consumers, or are we knocking it down? When we rail on fizzy yellow beer, are we tarnishing our last name? And then when it's our turn, we stand up and say, "Oh, I'm not like my brother or my dad," even though I'm from the same lineage, even though it's the same stuff in the bottle. "Oh, this is better." We've got to understand that there is a consequence to us pointing at each other as much as we do sometimes, because in the end, a high tide raises all ships, but likewise, a receding tide lowers them all. Are we scapegoating and demonizing rather than competing? I love this one. Hey, we all want to win. I'm as competitive as the next guy. But is it really worth the victory if the way we've gotten there is by destroying each other in a scorched earth policy? Can't we compete? Can't we debate whether we're better than you by not saying you're bad or that you have an unfair advantage? I love the scapegoating thing. It's like a runner in a race who wins. And the guy who came in second says, "Oh, you had more expensive shoes than I did. You had a better training facility than I did. You had a better coach than I did." And doesn't stop and say, "Shit, did you work harder? Were you a better athlete?" We scapegoat. It's easy to do. Do we understand the implications of a zero-sum game? If beer doesn't grow, what does that mean for all of us? Do we really understand that? Are we ready for a share battle in craft? Take a look at developed markets like California or Oregon and Washington if you want to see what the future might look like. We got to be fit to fight in those markets. And as we point fingers and basically support double standards, we don't do that. And lastly, or second to last, are we squandering a golden opportunity? This could be the golden age of craft, if we let it be, and if we don't hide behind those double standards. So as I wrap up, I'll ask you, are we having the debates we need to have Are we debating innovation and transparency and double standards, or are we having the convenient populist ones? Because the convenient populist ones are really easy. They'll never get anybody mad at you. You'll be able to have a lot of people kind of slap you on the back and say they agree with you. But I'd submit to you it's not going to get our industry where we need it to go. So what industry do we want? Opaque, self-interested, hypocritical, internally focused, destructive, stagnant, or transparent? Trustworthy, creative, intelligent, confident, vibrant, consumer-driven, rewarding, aspirational. Don't we want an industry where we celebrate success for each other? And we basically want that success for ourselves? Or do we want an industry where all we do is cut it down because of unfair advantage? So what can we do? We can stay true. For everybody who's starting out, man, I got to tell you, stay true to what got you in the industry. I'm fortunate. I love my job. I love the founders I get to work with, be that Kurt and Rob Widmer or Paul Shipman or Cameron Healy, and I love hearing the passion in their voices about what got them started 30 or 20 or 35 years ago. And it always reminds me to stay true to what got them in the industry. I submit to you we have to compete, but don't denigrate. I want to be better, I want to win, but it doesn't mean I want you to be bad. It doesn't mean you're evil, and it doesn't mean that I need to basically tear you down in order to lift me up. Understand what got us here and why. Let's learn the lessons of the past, not be victim to them again, and let's update our thinking. Leave yesterday's battles for yesterday. Today's challenges need today's solutions. And I have to tell you, sometimes when I read the trade press or when I go to beer conferences, man, I feel like the talking heads are fighting a battle that was fought 20 years ago. And they're wasting all of our time in the process, present party included. We should celebrate success. And as I leave you, last but not least, we should always celebrate beer. And with that, I will thank you very much for your attention.